These are the most misused words on eBay, and I'm sure you've come across this problem once or twice. I've seen several recent PC ads claiming like new, and even straight up new conditions for clearly used and even dated hardware. It's pretty ridiculous. So I figured I'd make this short video to clear up the confusion. Stay with me. The AOC CU34G2X is a 34-inch curved VA gaming monitor with a 1 millisecond response time, 144 Hz refresh rate, and intuitive stand. It boasts AMD FreeSync for ultra smooth gameplay, 2 HDMI 2 ports, 2 DisplayPort 1.4 ports, and a single USB 3.2 port for maximum compatibility. And best of all, you'll enjoy a rich, crisp resolution of 3440 by 1440. If you're in the market for a premium ultra-wide panel at a not-so-premium price, click the link below to learn more. Newsflash! Hardware you've used is used. There is no such thing as like new in the tech space, although it is loosely used in the industry, and I get that. If you've got a product that looks new, but that has been used, regardless of the frequency, you might feel inclined to label it like new. But I like to use eBay's item condition checklist. First, you've got new. Unopened, brand new, sealed, undamaged, you get the point. Shows no signs of use because it isn't used, right? This one's pretty straightforward. It could be what you'd buy from a retail store, brand new. Up next is open box. Now this one is misused quite a bit on eBay by those in the tech space especially, and it's because it can't really be validated. Open box literally means that the box was opened, but that the product inside is unused, okay? So the product itself is new, technically the product, not the box of the product, although it's all considered the product, but packaging is not new. Where the discrepancies come in are in regards to the protective wrapping or the seal. If the product isn't sealed, it isn't new. It can't be because of the previous definition. And you can't necessarily guarantee that the product wasn't at least tested or refurbished. Same goes for protective wrapping, and this one's especially dubious. If the product's missing its original screen cover, let's say, or if the plastic wrapping on a graphics card is missing, you've got to ask yourself why. It's literally the first thing you do before using the product. Keyword there, use. So be wary. One way to sniff out the BS is to sort through the photographs. If the product in question either doesn't include any in the listing or contains super blurry shots like this one right here, ask the seller to send pics. And if the product arrives and is in worse shape than it appeared in the pictures, dispute the sale with eBay and use the photos sent by the seller for evidence. Now, if you're unsure whether an open box product includes original cables or adapters, things that tend to go missing over time, ask the seller directly and save the messages as insurance in case things happen to go missing upon arrival. Moving on, manufacturer refurbished. It's one of those you'll see quite a bit, especially on e-retailer sites like Newegg and Amazon, but also on eBay. And it's either sanctioned by the original equipment manufacturer, or OEM, or restored by the OEM directly. Either is satisfactory, and what it means is that the product was restored to a state that might be interpreted as like new if it existed in the tech space. Third parties with the correct certifications and work standards can become ASPs, or authorized service providers, and their work would qualify as manufacturer refurbished, so they're working on behalf of a bigger company like Apple. But there's another type of refurbished, and that's seller refurbished. And this one, this is an important distinction. The refurbishing work is not approved by the manufacturer. Now, that doesn't mean that the work isn't viable. It just means that it doesn't have the blessing, the OEM stamp of approval. And it, again, is fairly subjective. My interpretation of seller refurbished might differ from yours, and it's that lack of a guarantee about quality that can cause problems later on. I mean, straight up, it means you could end up with shoddy workmanship and a product that should have been just labeled as used, even though it might have been, I don't know, cleaned with a cleaning cloth. This shows up frequently on eBay. You need to be careful with this one. Sift through some of it. You can always ask the seller directly what was replaced, cleaned, or repaired. If a graphics card fan was replaced and the thermal paste was replaced and the shroud and fins were thoroughly cleaned, you could arguably pass that off as seller refurbished. Although it's, I don't know, anybody could do that. It doesn't take a ton of time to do and really no inherent skill either. But no two sellers are alike again, and your standards of acceptable cleanliness might differ from mine, so be sure to reference high-resolution photographs before purchasing. But such a job doesn't magically make the card new again, or even like new for that matter, and that's another point I want to bring up. You cleaning the card and making it look brand new does not mean that it is now suddenly like new or new. Do not misuse that word, especially on a site like eBay. That could spawn trouble way on down the line. So for tech, remember, it's either used or it isn't. And if it's used but restored properly, it becomes refurbished, not like new. That at least is how eBay differentiates things, and you want to make sure you play by eBay's rules if you're selling on eBay. I happen to agree with them, by the way. Next up, we've got good old used items, and this one's pretty straightforward as well. The product will likely show signs of wear and tear, though not always the case. You may see small scratches, dents, chips, and creases. You may notice dust buildup. You'll probably see oil and fingerprints from handling, color might be faded, photographs should reveal most of this, by the way, and any major scratches or imperfections should be disclosed in text by the seller in the item's description, just to be on the safe side. This is selling advice. If you've any doubts, it never hurts to ask. Buying advice. This condition is usually pretty straightforward for things like graphics cards, right, which often sit in systems once installed for years and are never touched again. Most of the time, the worst you'll see is caked up dust, which is an easy fix if you're willing to take things apart. CPUs and RAM, even more consistent usually. Dust doesn't really matter for CPUs especially, and a majority of chips and modules aren't randomly dying after a few years of use. But the things in tech that you should be concerned about buying used: power supplies and storage drives. A used power supply comes with a variety of unknowns, and the power supply, seeing as though it powers literally everything in your system, could potentially destroy your entire system, so be careful what you put in your system. And what system was the unit previously used is an important question to ask sellers. How hard was the unit stressed? You might want to ask that. Was it receiving sufficient airflow? Maybe pictures of the unit in a previous system would shed light on that. Dust buildup, I know that's pretty difficult to clean out of a PSU as well, and these units are probably some of the most prone to failure. You also don't want to just rip open a power supply. You could kill yourself. I'm not even joking about that. You actually could, so be very careful. I only recommend doing that if you are an electrician or somebody who works on these all the time. So be careful. Now, as for storage drives, it's super straightforward to me. If you have no idea what data was on that drive prior to your purchase, don't buy it. I generally don't trust random sellers as far as you can throw them, and I don't like taking chances with my personal information and hardware. And even if the drive's been restored, much of the data previously on there can be recovered unless the entire memory bank was rewritten over and over again. We call that washing. And I know some of you are thinking, oh, come on, Greg, that's just fear-mongering, but it has happened multiple times, and this isn't just advice for the seller. A potential buyer could have some really sketchy stuff on that drive. Because see, when you delete something on a hard drive or an SSD, you're only telling the unit that the data can be overwritten. It doesn't mean that it always is, especially if plenty of space still exists within the volume. But anyway, those are the big item description categories to look out for. There's obviously the 4 parts or not working category as well, but I don't really think I need to explain what that one means. Now, if you have any additional questions, feel free to leave those below. I'm here to help. Consider liking this video, subscribing, and I'll catch you in the next one. Maybe if you have a friend that likes buying or selling on eBay, show them this video. Could help them out in the long run. My name's Greg. Thanks for learning with me.